If you're hearing this right now, then you were not meant to scroll past it. You were not meant to delay it, and you were not meant to come back to it later when it feels more convenient. Because what is being placed in front of you carries timing, and timing does not wait for comfort. It responds to readiness, and you are ready, whether you plan to be or not.
This is not casual. This is not optional. This is direct. God is not asking for your attention right now. He is requiring it. Because there are moments when delay costs more than action, when hesitation creates distance, and when ignoring what is being revealed keeps you in a position you were never meant to remain in. And this is one of those moments. This wasn't random. It was interruption. Your routine was interrupted for a reason. Your focus was redirected for a reason. And the urgency you feel is not pressure. It is precision. Because when God moves His urgency, it is not about fear. It is about alignment that cannot be postponed without consequence. You are not here by accident. You are here because something needs to be understood. Now. Not later. Not eventually. Not when everything else is handled. But now. While your awareness is open and your attention is fully present. You are chosen. There are things in your life that you have been holding on to that no longer align with where you are being moved. And you already know what they are. You don't need a list. You don't need confirmation. You don't need someone else to explain it to you. Because the awareness has already been placed inside you. And what you are feeling right now is not confusion. It is recognition. You felt it building. That sense that something is off. That awareness that certain paths no longer feel right. That internal resistance when you try to continue as if nothing has changed. That is not discomfort. That is direction. This wasn't random. It was instruction. God does not always give detailed explanations. He gives clear signals, and the chosen are expected to respond without needing everything to be fully mapped out. Because obedience does not come from full understanding. It comes from recognition of truth. And you recognize this. You know exactly what you've been delaying. You know exactly what you've been tolerating. You know exactly what you've been trying to justify, even though it no longer fits. This is not about overthinking. This is about acting. You weren't rejected. You were warned. There is a difference between being removed from something and being told to remove yourself. And what you are experiencing right now is not removal that happens without your input. This is a moment where your decision matters. Where your response determines what happens next. Where your willingness to act immediately aligns you with what is already prepared for you. This wasn't random. It was decision. You have been given time before. Time to think. Time to observe. Time to wait. But this is not that phase. This is the moment where waiting turns into action. And action requires clarity. Not perfect clarity, but enough clarity to move. You already have that. You don't need more signs. You don't need more confirmation. You don't need more delay. Because everything you need to make the move has already been placed in front of you. You are not missing information. You are resisting action. And that resistance is what is being confronted right now. This wasn't random. It was confrontation. There are people who will hear something like this and ignore it, not because it isn't real, but because they're not ready to respond. And that is the difference between those who are chosen and those who are not. The chosen do not just hear. They act, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it requires letting go, even when it disrupts what feels familiar. Because familiarity is not the same as alignment. And you have outgrown what you're still holding on to. You are chosen. There is something specific that needs to be dropped. Not slowly, not eventually, but immediately. Because its presence in your life is no longer neutral. It is obstructive. It is interfering with what is trying to move toward you. And as long as it remains, what is aligned with you will stay at a distance. You feel that tension. You feel that pull. That is not confusion. That is separation beginning. This wasn't random. It was urgency. God does not rush without reason. And when urgency appears, it is because the window for alignment is open. And windows do not stay open indefinitely. They require response within the moment they are given. And you are in that moment right now. Not later. Now. You were not brought here to think about this. You were brought here to act on it. You weren't rejected. You were called. And calling does not wait for comfort. It moves when it is recognized. You recognize this. You feel it clearly. You know what needs to change. And you know it needs to change now. This wasn't random. It was command. You are not being asked to understand everything. You are being asked to move, to release, to drop what no longer aligns without negotiation. Because what is waiting for you requires space that cannot exist while you are still holding on to what belongs to your past. You are not losing anything that was meant to stay. You are making room for what is meant to arrive. You are chosen, and chosen requires response, not delay, not hesitation. Response. This is that moment. And what happens after this moment will depend entirely on whether you treat this as just as a message or as a turning point that requires immediate alignment. Because there are moments in your life where everything slows down to give you space to think. And then there are moments like this, where everything narrows into a single decision that carries more weight than it appears. And this is that kind of moment, where delay is not neutral, where hesitation is not harmless, and where ignoring what you already know will not keep things the same, but will quietly move you further away from what has been prepared for you. This wasn't random. It was a line being drawn. You have reached a point where what you are holding on to is no longer just something that doesn't fit. It has become something that actively blocks, something that interferes with timing, something that keeps you tied to a version of yourself that you have already outgrown. And that is why the urgency feels different this time, because this is no longer about gradual separation. This is about decisive release. This is about choosing alignment over attachment without needing the situation to become worse before you act. You already see it clearly. You already feel the misalignment. And clarity removes the need for more time. You are chosen. There's a tendency to wait for confirmation through discomfort, to allow things to break completely before letting them go, to look for a clear negative outcome so that the decision feels justified. But that is not how this moment is structured, because what you are being asked to release does not need to collapse for you to recognize it no longer belongs. It only needs to be seen for what it is, and you have already seen it. This wasn't random. It was exposure. God does not always remove things for you when you are ready to act yourself. Sometimes He reveals them clearly and waits to see if you will move without being forced. Because forced removal teaches survival, but chosen release builds alignment, and alignment is what sustains what is coming next in your life. You are not being forced. You are being trusted. And that trust requires response. You weren't rejected. You were given authority. authority to decide, authority to move,
authority to end what no longer aligns, without needing external validation or permission.
And that authority is what defines the chosen, not just awareness, not just understanding, but the ability to act on what is already known, without delay, without overthinking, without waiting for circumstances to make the decision easier. This wasn't random. It was empowerment.
There is something about this moment that feels different from all the others. And that difference is not coming from the situation itself. It is coming from your awareness. Because you are no longer questioning what you feel. You are no longer doubting what you see. You are no longer trying to convince yourself that things might still work when everything in you knows they don't. And that level of clarity changes the responsibility you carry. Because now you cannot say you didn't know. Now you cannot say you needed more time. Now you cannot say you were unsure.
You know,
And knowing requires action.
you are chosen.
There is also something waiting on the other side of this decision. Something that cannot move closer until space is created. Something that has been positioned but not released. Something that requires a clean break from what you are holding on to now. And that is why the urgency exists. Not to pressure you, but to align you with the timing that has already been set. This wasn't random. It was timing. You are not being asked to drop everything because what you have is worthless. You are being asked to drop it because it has served its purpose and cannot go where you are being led next. And holding on to it out of familiarity, out of fear, or out of hesitation does not preserve it. It delays what is meant to replace it. You are not preserving anything by waiting. You are postponing what is next. You weren't rejected. You were being moved. There is a moment where the chosen stop negotiating with what they already know, where they stop looking for reasons to stay, where they stop trying to manage something that is clearly ending, and instead they move with clarity, with decisiveness, with full awareness that what they are doing is not loss, but alignment. This is that moment.
This wasn't random. It was final.
Not final in the sense of everything ending, but final in the sense that the decision has already been made internally, and what remains is the external action that matches it, the visible move that reflects what you have already accepted inside. And once that move is made, everything else begins to adjust around it. You do not need to calculate every outcome. You do not need to predict every result. You only need to act on what is clear, because clarity is enough. You are chosen. And chosen does not hesitate when the path is revealed. Chosen moves, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is immediate, even when it requires letting go of something that once felt necessary. Because what is necessary now is alignment, and alignment cannot wait. This wasn't random. It was a moment everything depends on. Drop what you already know does not belong. Move with what you already feel is right, and let what follows confirm what you have just done.
You are not being asked.
You are being called, and now you respond.